Hi everyone, I'm Glenda with SureFit Designs. The purpose of this video is to talk about princess seam lines, not in your bodice, but rather in your pant legs, both in the back and in the front. And the whole purpose for princess line seams in your pants, of course, is to give you better shaping and better fit in your pant legs. Now, I know I can hear a lot of you groaning already and saying, I don't want seams up my pant legs, but let's take a look at how this can really benefit you. There was a lady who came to one of my fitting classes, and she had very thin legs in relationship to a fuller lower hip and a thicker middle. And when you get enough fabric to go around a proportionately fuller hip, then what happens is sometimes the leg of that pant pattern ends up being wider than you would like it to be. So enter in seam lines to help make that change and get it to fit you better. Now, let's take a look at the photograph. When she was in class, we decided to do a test where one leg would have a seam up the front and the other leg would not. And you can see it's kind of a hands down contest, isn't it? The leg with the seam up the front fits so much better. And so we went ahead and did that to both the front legs and the back legs. And you can take a look at the side view of her pants. And even though these are made out of test fabric, you can see how well these pants are fitting her. Now, if we take a look at the pants that I have on, they are leggings, and I have used that seam going up the front. So yes, they're a fairly snug fit, and they're intended to be like that, but this seam up the front gives an even better contour to the shape of my body. So with that, let's take a look at what you need to do to your pattern in order to get the princess seam on the leg of your pants pattern. So this is basically what your pants pattern is going to look like when you finish drawing it. What you've got here, that inside line, is your stitching line, and you can see that I've added the 5/8 inch seam allowance as the large slotted line on the exterior. All right, one of the first things that we need to do to make a princess seam, and I'm actually doing this in the front of the pant, but the technique is exactly the same for the back of the pant as well, is the first thing we're going to do is extend this grain line coming all the way up into the waistline like that. And then I need to transfer this dart on top of that grain line. And so for all intents and purposes, this dart is 1 inch wide. So what we're going to do now is just measure 1/2 inch on each side of that extended grain line. And I also need to mark where the tip of the dart is going to be, like that. Now I'm just going to connect these dots together, and I'm going to do this in pencil. And of course you all know that you need to be working in pencil at home so that you can be erasing when you need to, which we are going to need to do here in just a moment. So the next thing I want to do is just gently curve the tip of that dart, because we are going to be cutting down the side legs of this dart, and I don't want to come to a sharp point here. I want this to be blended nice and smoothly. So let me get the designing stylus in like this, and you can see I'm doing a nice gentle curve on that dart. So now when I cut down either leg of that dart, when I transition into the straight of grain, it's going to be a nice smooth cut. Now with what's left of this dart here, remember that at home you've done it in pencil, you're just going to erase the tail end so it's visually not in your way. The next thing that we need to do is make sure that you've put a new straight of grain on both this center front portion and on the side front portion. So using the lines that are on your grain board, or like a quilter's ruler, make sure that you transfer the grain line over so that it is parallel to the existing straight of grain. So there it is in the center section of the pants, and here we're putting a new grain line on the side section of your pant pattern, like this. And one last thing that I need to do before I can cut it apart is I need to make some X's, which will indicate my matching notches, so that when I go to sew it back together, I'll know where all of these pieces go. All right, so now we start cutting, and we're going to cut on the side leg of the dart down into the grain line, and on this side leg of the dart down into the grain line, and that automatically removes that dart like this. Now, to finish cutting this, I'm just going to use my rotary cutter and cut all the way down the leg of the pants pattern. I'll just remove these things here. And I'm cutting right down through the original straight of grain marking. All right, so now that's separated, that center front section from the side front section. All right, now because I've cut on the interior of the pattern, now what we need to do is add seam allowances. So that's the next step. You'll take a piece of tracing vellum and lay it underneath. Pick that up, lay it underneath like this, and then tape it down, and tape it down well. Tape it like you mean it. Make sure that you've got enough tape in place so that this all isn't flopping apart. And tape all the way down like this. And you'll want to make sure you've got enough tape on there. Now we'll do the same thing on the other side. Like this. Get this all positioned. And my tape just split on me, so we're just going to have to pretend that I've taped it all the way down. So now the next thing we need to do is add seam allowances. So you're going to come in here with your designing stylus and use the slots that are provided on the designing stylus, and you're drawing against the side of the slot that is nearest to the outside edge, and that will add your 5/8 inch seam allowances here. Let me just remove that. And I'm just lining the stylus up so that I can see that edge of the slot as I finish this up. And of course your seam allowances will be added all the way down on that seam, and I'll do the same thing on this edge as well, like this. Okay, now what you want to do is transfer your matching notches out to, oops, I missed that line there, be like that. Okay, now you want to transfer your matching notch. There's one right here, and there's one right there, and here, and whoops, I didn't get the seam allowance on all the way down, but I think you understand exactly what I'm saying. And that way it's going to help you get it sewn together and matched up properly. Okay, so now what you're going to do is a test pair of pants, and when you put them, or when you stitch them up, please just use your original seam line here to sew them together. Now, so far we haven't removed any of the fullness anywhere. And that's intended because I want you to put them on, and then I want you to see where you need to remove the fullness. Now keep in mind your waist, your high hip, and your full hip are fitting you well. It's this leg, perhaps in the crotch area, or the leg itself, that might be a little bit too wide for you. So now is when we can start refining the inside of this seam here. So let's take a look at a pair of pants that I actually did this on. And here you can see that the dart shaping has been incorporated into that stitching line, and also what you're going to see here is this red dotted or dashed line here. That's my original 5/8 inch stitching line, and where you can see that I've done the basting in navy, that's where I've actually taken that leg seam in. Now you can take this in as much as you need to. In this instance, I brought it in about 1/4 of an inch, but you could come in 3/8 or 1/2 or 5/8 if you need to start shaping in this area for you. And of course, you can take that shaping all the way down your pant leg to make the front of the leg narrower, or you can shape just in that crotch area. So it really, really does work well. Now we'll take a look at the leggings that I was wearing, and that's what the front of it looks like. And when we look at the inside, once I'd stitched the seam, I then trimmed it to be a 3/8 inch wide seam, and then I took my twin needle and did decorative top stitching on the top of the seam so that it made it look like it was supposed to be there. Now, I have to just mention to you, on a recent trip where I was in New York, I ended up doing my browsing in ready-to-wear, and I can't begin to tell you how many designers were using these seams up both the back and the front of their patterns. I did take a photograph of one of the pairs of pants that I saw, and we'll take a look at this. I'll put it up on the video for you. You can see that there are seams going up the front of the pant leg, and then in that seam is where they've put an exposed zipper. Now, you may not want to wear 2 exposed zippers on the front of your tummy if you happen to have a slightly larger tummy, but my whole point is that, gosh, I bet every third pant I looked at had a seam going up the front of the leg of the pant. And the reason for that is that designers know that with those seams, they really can achieve a far better fit. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to show this to you. So for this and other helpful videos on getting your Sure-Fit Designs patterns to fit you properly, make sure that you go on over to the Sure-Fit Designs Learning Center and click on the video library, because it's there that you're going to see all kinds of complimentary videos to help you get the very best fitting pair of pants that you can with your Sure-Fit Designs pants pattern.